Master was, it's not one of those episodes that I was like, it was fine. Doesn't really stand out too much to me, other than that ending, that scene towards the end where Kramer puts on his hat as he's wearing that multicolored dream coat, has this cane that's part of some ad that Elaine was doing with the Peterman catalog, and he basically got pimpicized and then got mistaken for a pimp in this very cheap parking lot where both him and George were parking their cars. Other than that, like, it's a really not a big standout episode. The main story was, well, one, I don't say it was really a main story. It's either George's story or Elaine's story. I'd say it's the main story. But, so the story was, first off, George had this friend of Susan's staying with him. His name was Ethan. He was known as the Wig Master. He worked for some Broadway musical thing, designing the, he basically has some fancy coat that which the multicolored coat that Kramer wore at the end of this episode that Kramer was going to be allowed to borrow after getting some type of like a tour, which Elaine actually offered the guy she dated in this episode, we'll talk about him in a second, named Craig, to take him on the tour as well. So we had so the reason why those two got hooked up together, Elaine and Craig, was because Jerry was at a store looking for a new coat and a crest on it. He didn't really like the jacket, and then he said something like, I'm going to come back later to get someone else's opinion. Craig doubted he would come back, which got under Jerry's skin, even though it was true. He had any interest, he wasn't planning on coming back. And of course, he didn't want to disappoint salesmen, so he brings back Elaine, and instead, him and Elaine just hit it off. And it started some trend throughout the story where Jerry was kind of like, how did they not know that, I was going out with you? Or like he basically was like upset because with Craig, well, first off, he didn't like the jacket, and then Elaine liked the jacket. Well, probably also partially because Elaine thought Craig was good looking. So that fell off his favor. I think there was one time where he was sitting he was sitting there at some place with Ethan, making chit chat with him, Susan's friend, who again George couldn't stand because of how long he was staying, and George thought it was too much. And then while there, this guy, which I'm not 100% sure, but I got the vibe that Ethan wasn't straight completely. So I thought that guy was asking him out. And of course, Jerry was like, "Are you asking him out? How do you know we're not a thing here?" Basically, or something like that. So it was a couple times. I think someone even asked Kramer to do something with him in front of him. And he's like, "How do you not know that, we had a thing here?" Basically, he thought that he was just, even though it really wasn't a big deal, Jerry was being, petty and like, saying, "Why are you doing this to us?" Basically. But, so anyways, so that was kind of like a side story for Jerry. But the main thing with Jerry was that he had that jacket and he didn't like it. But then Elaine told him, she liked it, even though he only came back just to stick it to Craig that he was going to come back and he wasn't lying. Jerry eventually did try to return the jacket for spite, but then they refused to return the jacket for spite after talking with the manager. And Jerry said, "Fine, I just don't want it." He goes, "Nope, too late. You said for spite. You're not getting your money back," which, just frustrated Jerry. But anyway, so Elaine and Craig started doing their thing. And then Craig gave Elaine this heavy discount on a Nicole Miller's dress or something like that. But he kept saying that it should be coming here, or, it's on a boat overseas, won't be here for quite a while. So everybody starts telling her that he's working her for the discount, basically saying he wasn't going to, give her the discount until, basically people thought that he was trying to, get more out of her, more out of her until she can get that dress. Basically saying that he wasn't going to, give her the dress until he slept with her, basically. So, Elaine didn't want to believe it until there's a scene where they go back to the apartment and Craig falls asleep on the couch. While he's asleep on the couch, Elaine gets a phone call from Craig's manager, the same guy who refused to accept Jerry returning the jacket for spite. He called us to let him know that he doesn't need to come in until 11 the next day. Well, then, while on the phone, she just had to ask if there were any Nicole Millers on order. And they said, there's none on order because we have a lot here. And they had it in their size. So then Elaine realized that everybody was right. He was working her with that discount. She originally thought that maybe they weren't because he also gave the discount to a friend, a guy who was a male friend of his. But then Elaine remembered the Wig Masters complimented her hair earlier, saying how human hair can make a fortune of money. So then while Craig was asleep, Elaine took the scissors. We never saw the guy bald or anything, but Elaine obviously cut Craig's hair to give to the Wig Master in payback for, basically working her with that discount. Of course, in a blooper, Kramer said maybe Craig thinks you're working him for a discount, shaking that little boom boom of yours, and of course Julia Louis-Dreyfus to start cracking up laughing. There's actually a special on this disc saying that that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was one who just couldn't stop laughing. It was like past 10 o'clock at night. She was not a late night person, and that's where she probably bursted out laughter most of the time. So that was that story there. Now, Kramer and George were both kind of dealing... Again, Jerry was somewhat of his story there, but a little bit involved with Kramer's storyline. Because, first off, George and Kramer, I guess, started parking their car in some really cheap parking lot. It was only like $75 a month to park in. First off, Kramer, when he gets too tired from walking back from the parking lot to get to the apartment, which obviously shows that he wouldn't be able to survive that AIDS walk even if he didn't get beat up by all those thugs previously. But he's asking Jerry to drive him because he left his apartment keys in the car. Well, Jerry's not going to drive him because of that, and Kramer again locked out of his apartment for the night. So he spent the night over at Jerry's, and he went to bed early, and he couldn't fit on the couch, so he ended up sharing the bed with Jerry. And of course, there's that blooper reel whenever Kramer was sleeping in Jerry's bed, and he rolled over, turned on the light, and just started looking through a magazine like just casually, like it's no big deal. Like it was back in the Friars Club whenever he came into Jerry's apartment at like 4 a.m. and said, "Want to catch a movie? I'm bored." Because he has all this extra time on his hands since he was trying out those Leonardo da Vinci sleep habits. But then Kramer's just naturally looking through the magazine going, "Oh, you see patio furniture is on sale." Which of course I jag around because, sometimes when I've gone on vacation with like my father, like a bigger group, my dad and I, if there's only like so many rooms, then my dad obviously just shared the bed to leave more room, and I'll like joke around, be like, "Oh, patio furniture is on sale or whatnot," just for the fun of it. But the main story there, besides George dealing with the Wig Master staying at his place, which again just bothered George, was the fact that both George and Kramer parked in this parking lot. Well, when George needed an excuse to get away from from Susan and their Wig Master friend, he came by and drove Kramer to the parking lot to get his keys. Well, they said that the keys to his car had been misplaced. But then on the way over, they found a used condom in George's car. So they start suspecting that there's some fish on us. Just a lot of hookers walking around in that lot. And they think that the parking attendant is allowing hookers to borrow anybody's car, which, of course, they offered Kramer a pink Cadillac to drive, which, again, that's not his car. But they were saying that, basically they're like, there's a cheap parking lot that was allowing, hookers just to, do some extra work, if you know what I mean. So, of course, George wanted his deposit back, but they said, nope, if you read a contract, not refundable. And I understand they couldn't get his car back for another few days because it's parked towards the back, which sent George, upset that he just wanted his car back. He was tired of his car being used, as like a hooker place. Well, then also, There was a moment there also. They've done a couple moments in these last couple of episodes leading up to the finale. Because again, obviously, George wants out of this engagement with Susan, but he doesn't have the balls just to say, oh, it's over. I'm done. I'm sorry. He can't do that. So I guess she sees George talking with this hooker in the parking lot, and basically George is like, oh wait, you said you can't trust me. You can't trust me, but it's like, obviously he was like excited the fact that Susan may not be able to trust him, which of course leads to Susan saying, no, I do trust you. I know you wouldn't do what you're doing. So it's just like he couldn't get rid of her. So dang it. But that's the Wig Master episode. Oh, of course, yes, I almost forgot to mention. Sorry. But of course, throughout the episode, Elaine had this cane that she was that was part of the Peterman catalog that she let Kramer use when she didn't need anymore. Kramer was also allowed to borrow that multicolored jacket the Wig Master was working on. And then in the last scene, there was this lady who walks out of a shop. Her hat blows off and rolls down the street. We see someone stop it with a cane, pick it up, and sure enough, it's Kramer putting a hat on, walking down the street, dressed like a pimp. And of course, he gets back to his car at that cheap parking lot, and there was a hooker fooling around inside there. So Kramer gets into a fight with her, but then, of course, Kramer gets mistaken for the pimp because of how he's dressing, and he's taken away to the police station. And, of course, they said, turn to the side, you pimp. He goes, I'm not a pimp! But, that's the Wig Master. I mean, other than that, and, of course, the scene where, the scene with Kramer sharing the bed with Jerry, saying, oh, the patio furniture's on sale. Like, this is an okay episode. Wasn't one of my favorites. Just okay. That's the Wig Master. Next episode is actually a pretty good one. The Calzone, which I think is also one that's very well known. Most of the episodes are well known, of course. But next is one I like a little bit more, which is called the Calzone. And, of course, Todd Gack. Who's Todd Gack? We'll find out in the next video. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the Wig Master episode? Make sure your thoughts down in the comment section below. And be sure as always to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. And follow me on Twitter as well at TheManAirboy93. Until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night. And peace out, everybody.